speak one more time for me?
Check, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That makes sense.
Just save a little bad.
One time I called over there and I was like, I saw him, look at the shoulder. Sheldon's not here. I was like, where's Sheldon? Like, you catch up with his family on the holiday, and he's not there. It's like, I was like, all right.
That's so good.
I was like, I don't even got anything to say anymore. Like,
Yeah. That's what I got.
And 2.
that's just a dumb football game.
So where are we in there? It's funny. It's cool that.
I mean, you know,
Ready, PK?
And we're ready.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Simeon. I am a community member. On December 30th, in the early morning hours of Friday, upwards of 150 Minneapolis police workers and city workers, and police attacked a community of unhoused people in Northeast Minneapolis known as the Quarry. About 10 people were living there at the time and were awoken by police over the loudspeakers telling them to leave immediately under threat of arrest. Residents' tent homes were surrounded by crowds of police shining flashlights and screaming orders at them. They were forced to leave without being able to take any belongings other than what they could pack in the seconds that they were given to leave. Some of the former residents are here today to expose this violence because that's what it is. Unhousing people is inherently violent. The first speaker is Nate, former resident of the Quarry.
My name is Nate. I'm a former resident of the Quarry. It was about 6:40 a.m. It wasn't even bright out. It was still as dark as it was at 10 p.m. And I'm being woke up by a loudspeaker that's consistently on a loop saying, grab your medications, grab your important documents, you're trespassing, get out. That in itself was startling. I tried to get up and grab the things that I wanted to, but I really didn't. I missed my snow pants. Luckily I got new ones. My girlfriend missed her gloves. We forgot a lot of stuff. Our clothes. I'm still wearing the same sweatshirt. But that's neither here nor there. What I'm trying to say is this was bogus. We counted, there was about 8 of us up there. It was less than what you just said. 8 of us. To be honest, I'm a little flattered that y'all brought that many people for us. It was quite the show. Thank you, Jacob Fry. But really, it was super heartless and fucked up. I realize I can't say that in TV. It was really messed up. They herd us literally like cattle to a slaughterhouse. They started on the target side and just pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed us. Literally, like, we had nothing to do. When you turn back and look at them, they told us to look the other way and flash flashlights in our eyes, like we're supposed to grab things like that. I heard my neighbors be told to come out of their tent with their hands up like they were criminals when we were really just trying to sleep with our loved ones in the warmth. I didn't know that this is what kind of treatment we got for just minding our own business behind a giant mound of snow on an old landfill. Really though, I wouldn't trade it for the world, because here's why. It made me realize how messed up things are, and it made me realize like what I really want to fight for and what I want to believe in. And it's definitely not that. That was a disgusting abuse of power.
Next speaker is Charles, a former resident of Quarry as well.
Hello, my name is Charles. I'm the longest resident of the Quarry. I kind of knew the eviction was coming, but Mayor, you know, you built your campaign on helping homeless people, and then you start living your campaign on destroying them. So what's going on, man? What do you really believe in? You believe in helping people, or you believe in hurting them? With all I seen was a bunch of cops threatening to take us to jail if we didn't leave in 3 minutes. You take 150 cops out there to run 8 people off, and half those people were women. I'm kind of flattered too that it took that many cops. But you know what, man? Maybe you need to check your own priorities and see what you're really all about. Because them things you're telling on TV about all the help you gave us was a lie. There was nobody there helping us. The police kept telling us to go to different places to seek help, and there was nobody at those places. I checked every one of them myself. So how about telling the public what really is going on? How about being honest for a change? How about really helping us? Some of us had housing lined up, and we ran us off before we could actually get in them. You can't just get in a housing overnight. It takes a long time. How about doing what's right instead of what's wrong and telling people what's right? Thank you.
That reminds me, as I was in the car leaving there, and someone was helping me transport the few things I did have, a Minneapolis police officer rolled up next to us at a red light, pulled out his cell phone and started filming us and pointing and laughing at us. That's not cool, because that could happen to anybody. But I'm glad that he got his kicks.
Speaker is Aaron Johnson with Communities United Against Police Brutality.
Hi, my name is Aaron Johnson, A-A-R-O-N, Johnson. Basically, I just want to kind of say, you know, I play a bit of a dual role because I'm part independent media, but I am part also very involved with these camps, and I spend a lot of time meeting with the people in them and showing up and just trying to, I'm filming a documentary, so I've met a lot of people and just had a lot of conversations. And in my experience, what I've seen is that as also a disabilities rights activist, as a disabled person myself, is that many of these residents are just disabled people. I had a stroke 3 years ago that initially left me paralyzed from the neck down. I luckily have relearned to walk using a cane, but I still do not have SSDI disability. And I just got denied again. I can't work. A lot of these people can't work. There's a narrative that there's, people are living in tents because of drugs. And you know, a recent survey showed that about 50% of people living in camps are too disabled to work. They're like me. How do you live 3 years with no income? And yet here I am. How do I not end up in an encampment? I'm not on drugs. But let's run with that narrative, the drug narrative. It's very Ronald Reagan. And we have elected these officials in Minneapolis to represent our progressive values, not Ronald Reagan values. The war on drugs is over. We're moving past that. So we need to look at the real causes, and we need to establish systems so that people like me don't have to try to survive 3 years with no income during a global pandemic and everything else that's going on. So That's it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is DJ.
My name is DJ. I'm a community member, and I am asking Jacob Fry to stop these raids on the unhoused community. These are terrible. They are destroying our community. They are traumatizing people, and quite frankly, these raids are killing folks that are happening in the middle of winter. Jacob Fry needs to stop these raids. That's all I have to say.
I'll take questions in a second, but I just want to clarify, add a point of clarification. One of the ways that the attacks on these encampments are actually, as DJ said, literally killing people, is there's a direct correlation between these so-called evictions and overdoses in the unhoused community in the days following. Being unhoused is extremely difficult. I'm not speaking from experience, thankfully, but getting to know people who've been unhoused, it's difficult, it's traumatizing, and often perpetuates trauma and dysfunction. And further unhousing people, continually displacing them, moving them around, like Nate said, forcing people to, like, physically corralling people out of their homes and communities like cattle, further traumatizes them. It's no surprise then that people would self-medicate in a situation. Like, tell me, you wouldn't want to drink if you lost your home, you know? So the direct correlation between the attacks on these encampments and overdoses in the next few days is one of the most sobering facts that I've ever learned. And I think it's important to speak on that. Do you have any questions? No, one more speaker.
Thank you to all my unhoused comrades and housed comrades for speaking, and I just want to add on to your point that the impact of the policy of displacement is ultimately the intention. The material impact of dispossessing people from their few possessions that they have, from further debilitating them, especially in the middle of winter, and forcing people to up and move. And the impact is death, honestly. And on top of the drug overdoses that are being seen in the unhoused community, there's also an HIV epidemic, which is still happening, because when you displace people from their safe using supplies, right, they're forced to use maybe old supplies. They're not using with the same people. They don't have these systems of safety in place, which is what encampments allow people to have, is a place with community. We are still in a pandemic, and what we have also seen is rampant spread of airborne viruses in these congregate settings that are shelters, because there are not systems in place to keep our most vulnerable population safe. There are not. So all of these things, all of these burdens are being pushed onto the most vulnerable populations, and it's not just happening in Minneapolis. It's happening in cities all across the nation. This is a pattern of pushing people to the margins, of pushing people to the brink, and then destroying what little hope that they have left in their communities. And it's not okay, and we're not gonna stand for it. We're not gonna stand for it. We're not gonna allow people to be pushed to the margins, because an injury to one is an injury to all, okay? And it's time that we stand up and stand with our unhoused community members. Well, I guess not stand, but you know what I mean. Move in solidarity with our unhoused community members, because the reality is that these are overlapping problems. And yeah.
question?
I just would like to piggyback on something the individual was talking about. We know there's more than 8,000 homeless individuals that experience homelessness in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And also we know this pandemic that's been going on with what they may call HIV, monkeypox, or what have they. And now they have to change it to monkeypox because they said it was kind of like discriminatory words. But what is your ties with the individuals out here and how you all want to help with that?
Personally, my connection to the unhoused folks at various encampments has been a myriad of ways. I mean, so I've got a car, thankfully, and with four-wheel drive, so I deliver propane to folks that need it. I drop off food, give people rides to medical appointments, and then try to help out whenever I can after attacks when they come through with bulldozers and stuff, and people need to find a place to stay. So that's my connection to them, and I've learned that some of the best ways to help are to listen, to believe, and to ask people how you can help them rather than assuming you know how to do that. There's a difference between mutual aid and charity, and mutual aid is more along the lines of people coming together to help each other in the ways that they need. Charity is more of a service that somebody establishes to try to meet somebody's needs without necessarily knowing what those are. There are a lot of good resources and ways to find out about that, how you can help. There's a couple of Facebook pages, Home Base, Sanctuary Supply Depot. There's some Twitter pages for those as well that regularly put out information about things that unhoused folks need, ways to support them.
I want to ask one more question. Also, Mayor Jacob Fry indicated that he reached out to individuals and offered them housing or sheltering, if you will. Could you have one of the individuals who were out there, were they being reached out to, or was this a false narrative that he put out?
Yeah, so when they say that they offer people housing, or that people, like when they say that residents refuse housing, it's almost an outright lie. What they mean by housing is usually a one-night only stay at a shelter. Most shelters are full. In the last week, a new one was open, some emergency shelter was open with I think 50 beds. But they're all overnight stays. People would not be allowed to bring most of their belongings. And these people were, like, this was their homes, you know? You wouldn't expect me to take a one-night stay at a hotel unless I needed it, or unless I wanted to get out and leave all my belongings on the street. And so it's very disingenuous for the mayor to say things like that because it's deceptive, it's outright untrue. That this wasn't housing, this was temporary shelter, and most people would prefer to stay with their belongings and to stay with their partners. About half of the people that were living at the Quarry were there with their partners, and were living with their partners because that's what partners do. And most shelters don't accommodate split spouses or something, others, and so people would have to split up if they were to go to these shelters. So the housing that was offered to them is frankly a slap in the face. It might be an option for people who need to get out of freezing cold for a night. Beyond that, it's nothing.
You mentioned, or one of the people speaking mentioned that the police repeatedly were announcing that people had to get out, they may take medications. I personally heard that at least 5 different people lost their cell phones during the process of the eviction. Do you know, were those cell phones ever replaced or restored, or are there any other major items that people need that you've heard got left behind in the case?
Yeah, I can confirm that several people lost their cell phones. I think there are a couple computers. all of the belongings that people weren't able to carry with them or pack as they were given seconds to leave were destroyed by the bulldozers that came through afterwards. So they lost everything that they weren't able to take with them. I don't know of any other specific valuables other than some propane heaters, which is always something that people need. Those can be donated to the supply depot. Sanctuary Supply Depot is always taking those to keep people warm and alive. Does that answer your question? One other way that people can support this, support like unhoused folks, is on January 15th from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. At 4200 Cedar Avenue in Minneapolis. We will be hosting the Second People's Council. The Minneapolis People's Council started last month to bring people together to platform unhoused people's voices and to give them a chance to speak and form community. We'll be serving hot food, and there will also be a supply drive there. So if you can come to either donate, participate, listen, or just show solidarity.
Thank you. Can you repeat that address again and what day?
It's 4200 Cedar in Minneapolis.
What day?
January 15th, Sunday, 2 to 5 p.m.
My name is Charlie Lane. Cover my face is down there. Home to City Line. You know, the other night I heard on TV, heard some interview you did talking about which supplier drugs with sex trafficking. How about showing proof of that, Mayor? We don't have no sex trafficking going on. We don't even have the police coming to our county. Police never come to our county. We don't do anything for them to come there. You know, how about you? Right now I'm so mad right now I can't stand it. I'm not gonna let that get to me. The thing about it is, Mayor, do your job that you're hired to do and quit meddling with other people's lives that you don't belong in. You don't know anything about homelessness, because if you did, you wouldn't be talking crap about it. Thank you.
Any other questions?